Watching most of this episode, as soon as they got to the haunted house portion, I was kind of thinking to myself, this is absolutely the worst place that someone who sees spirits should go, because you're not going to know the difference of what's real and fake. Though, when you're kind of with two other people, and both of them, despite one being able to see smaller spirits, are interacting and maybe you want to and they're not, it kind of does give it away on if you are allowed to respond or not. So even though she came very close to kind of like letting the cat out of the bag that you're like, oh, she was going to do another freak out, and then realized that her friends, especially the scaredy cat Hana, wasn't scared, I was watching it thinking, oh, she's going to expose herself and that's going to trigger something. But in return, it turns out the most unlikely of places turned out to be probably the best place for someone who for so long has been bottling up all this fear that she wants to scream in the faces of these monstrosities and can't because she doesn't know if she responds, will she ever be able to get rid of them. Maybe more will attach to her. So when that scene came about where you have the different kind of like Halloween monsters and this spirit was also kind of like chasing, and she, for the first time, seemingly was able to say, like, leave me the hell alone, basically. It was great, and I thought it was interesting that the spirit seemingly listened as well, because while I definitely think it would be a situational thing, I don't think it's going to be a universally accepted thing that if you tell a spirit that you can see, like, yes, I can see you, but leave me the hell alone. While I think it wouldn't be unsurprising if a majority did listen and they just kind of moved on, because something that I've been kind of like picking up on, at least assuming that I'm kind of picking up on what they're trying to reveal here, is that most of these spirits aren't bad. They're just kind of cursed and lost and want to move on. So I think most of them probably would just accept that, yeah, you want me to leave you alone. But there are clearly bad spirits or creatures out there that need divine blessings to take care of, and you would want to be careful with it. But I thought it was such a great character moment for being so simple. The idea of going into a haunted house that, nothing here scares you because you literally are dealing with the most frightening of things. The whole idea of the monsters under your bed, like, she lives with that, right? So a guy dressed up with a chainsaw, as frightening as it is for the average person, because, for me, myself anyway, when I have gone into haunted houses, I don't like them. They do scare the shit out of me, because the ones I've gone into, it does have real people, and you don't know what's like a statue, and if it's grabbing you from the floor, if that's just a robotic hand, or, there was one I went into that, like, did have someone with a goddamn chainsaw. I assume it wasn't a real chainsaw with, like, real blades, but that thing made noise and it was spinning, and yeah, that scared the living shit out of me. So while I get Hana and, Yulia and things like that kind of getting freaked out, I completely understand why someone who can see literal monstrosities wouldn't bat an eye, but the fact that she can finally, for the first time, just scream her heart out and not feel like, oh, this thing in the corner is gonna realize I can see it. No, I can finally get out this pent-up energy. It almost reminded me of, like, someone who has all this, like, anger but doesn't or isn't able to express that anger, and then gets in a boxing ring and is able to just let it all out and just beat the living shit out of someone and feel a lot better, unlike the person who was on the receiving end of that force. It was just so great to see that, because in this episode, they very much, like, immediately kick it off into the teacher's storyline. And the teacher, has some very bad voodoo energy coming off of him. I saw some interesting theories last week in the comments section talking about how, like, what if those kind of spirit cat entities sort of a thing are related to maybe, like, the idea of, like, things he's harmed. Like, what if, because the last time we really going to trust this guy, he was about to take a cat, and then we see these almost like cat-like spirits behind him. So you very much have this weary energy, and, like, you're like, okay, should we do anything with them? Are we supposed to judge him? And then you have these spirits that are following him, like Attack on Titan style, like giant-ass hands following him, and then when you look too much, one of the spirits is like, don't look at him. And I'm like, you know what? I'll completely obey with you. Won't look at him at all. Though, I do like how the idea of just how hungry Hana is again. Usually she eats a lot, like she eats throughout her classrooms and she has a big lunch, but it felt like she ate like 3 lunches this week, and given all of the shit going on in that school, from like Titan-sized ghouls to just the ominous vibes coming off the teacher, there's got to be some powerful warding off going on for Hana, and it's hard to say if someone like Miko would be able to survive without having her as a friend. Like, even if they had a falling out, I'm pretty sure Miko, just for the sole reason that her spiritual energies probably keeping her safe, or she wants to keep her safe, would keep her around. But it's just a great episode, you know? Like, in some ways, this might have been, like, the absolute perfect Halloween episode, because one of the episodes did air on Halloween. But I think it's so great because for 8 weeks before this episode, we really saw her come closer and closer to breaking. She can't even go into a public stall without having something pop out from the toilet, right? She can't do anything without feeling like something's gonna be there, and it's pretty much going to eat away at you until you either break and reveal your secrets, or you're going to go absolutely insane and end up in a padded room. It's easy for a viewer to say, oh, if I was in her position, I'd be able to be stonewall and not respond at all. But no, everyone would. If you didn't, you clearly have no emotions. And if you have no emotions, you're clearly not watching anime, because it takes emotions to enjoy anime, right? But it's easy from a viewer perspective to say, like, oh, I could easily respond to this, or because we have the ability to not put ourselves in that situation, we can observe and say, oh, this is how I might respond. But in her situation, yeah, you're going to be petrified and maybe look at toilet paper and hope that's enough to get out of there. So I will say, as much as I loved a lot of those character moments and spooky moments, I think the moment where they took her from the stall, eating her lunch, and then brought her and kind of like showed her once again that she has friends, despite misunderstandings about what the haunted house meant, it's nice to see that the duo has kind of become a trio. And that, you know, characters who used to be very alone no longer have to worry about that and can really have a nice set of friends that cares about him, even if she is a little worried. I think the thing that spooks me out the most when it comes to the spiritual designs is when they have like elongated and twisted necks, because you don't know how they got there. Was it like a bad accident that, like, you know, severed a head or stretched their neck, something like that? And even if they're the nicest of spirits with the nicest of intentions, it's hard not to be like vomiting or wanting to, you know, just run the hell away even as a viewer, because when you have those like twisted necks, and I don't know, it kind of reminds me of like a serpent, and I'm just like, even if you're a very nice creature, you scare the living shit out of me and I want nothing to do with you. And even though it seems like the theme is don't judge a book by its cover, I'm glad that they're constantly reminding us why it's so easy to, because this girl, despite at face value not giving a reaction or giving very little, her internal thoughts says it all. I want to die, let's run the hell away. I mean, it'll be interesting though, because I'm curious if she'll start maybe trying to say go away more, because this definitely was a pretty big stepping stone episode for her character. Though the after the credits scene was interesting, because I'm not sure if I was supposed to feel this way or not, but it kind of felt that way. When we went back to the fortune teller, you know, she's working very hard because she doesn't want to be a burden to her kid, and then you see this like old man in the background like talking to her, but when she turns around and they do a wide shot, no one's there. So it almost gave me the impression that it was kind of just like a peaceful spirit sort of a thing, and I'm not sure if we'll get any more of that, but it was a nice touch to kind of wrap up the episode. But yeah, I leave another episode very impressed. Kind of sad that the show's almost over, but it's definitely been one of the most, I'd say, surprising shows of this season and just year in general that I never thought would be as good as it was, even though I had pretty decent hopes going into it. But of course, as always, let me know your thoughts and feelings, theories if you have any on how maybe the next couple episodes will go. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.